The courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that made the walls seem to breathe. Every eye was fixed on the young black woman standing at the witness table, her posture calm, her eyes unwavering. Across from her, Judge Whitmore, a man known as much for his arrogance as his silver hair, leaned back with a smirk that didn't belong in a room built for justice. "Did you say you speak 9 languages?" he asked moments earlier, disbelief dripping from every syllable. He hadn't expected her to say yes, but she had, firmly, without hesitation. And that's when the laughter came. Not loud, but sharp, the kind that cuts deeper than shouting ever could. It wasn't just a judge, the lawyers, the clerks. Even a few spectators chuckled softly, as though her words were a joke too absurd to be taken seriously. But what they didn't know, what none of them could possibly imagine, was that this same woman, Maya Jefferson, had spent her entire life defying impossibilities. She had been mocked before, doubted before, undermined before, and every single time she had risen, quietly, fiercely, and completely. In that moment, she didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She simply looked at the judge, her expression steady, her silence louder than his laughter, because deep down, she knew something none of them did. Before this hearing was over, every single person in that courtroom, including Judge Whitmore, would witness something unforgettable. By the end of this day, the same woman they mocked would leave the courtroom as a symbol of brilliance and resilience, while the man who laughed would carry the shame of his prejudice etched in public record forever. And it all began with one woman, a linguist, a survivor, and a fighter, standing in a courtroom where justice was supposed to be blind, but wasn't. Maya Jefferson's life began in a part of Atlanta where dreams often ended before they began. Her mother worked double shifts as a hospital janitor, her father having disappeared long before Maya learned her first words. They lived in a small 2-room apartment above a laundromat, where the hum of dryers was the soundtrack of her childhood. But Maya was different. From an early age, words fascinated her. She collected them the way other kids collected toys. At 5, she was already reading newspapers aloud to her mother, mimicking the cadence of newscasters she saw on TV. Their neighborhood wasn't kind to kids like her, kids who preferred books to basketball or who corrected adults' grammar by accident. Teachers at her public school often dismissed her curiosity as arrogance. One, in particular, once told her, "Maybe you should focus on speaking English right before worrying about any others." She remembered that comment for years. Still, she persisted. Her mother used to say, "Baby, if they don't open the door for you, build your own door." And so she did. Maya began teaching herself languages using old library books, online recordings, and YouTube videos. Spanish came first, then French, then German. Before she was 16, she could translate sentences between 3 languages fluently. Scholarships carried her out of Atlanta and into the University of Pennsylvania, where she majored in linguistics. There, for the first time, she felt seen until one professor, impressed yet doubtful, accused her of using translation software to pass a multilingual proficiency exam. She proved him wrong by standing in front of a crowded lecture hall and speaking in 6 different languages, flawlessly switching from Mandarin to Arabic to Portuguese. By graduation, she was fluent in 9, something only a handful of people in the world could claim. Maya could have gone anywhere, corporate interpreting, academia, global diplomacy. But she chose community work, helping immigrants, refugees, and underrepresented minorities navigate language barriers in legal and medical systems. When a local family from Cameroon was denied justice because their translator misinterpreted testimony, Maya volunteered to help. It was supposed to be a routine civil hearing, until she discovered that the judge overseeing it was the same Judge Whitmore known for making racist comments behind closed doors. That's how the stage was set. A courtroom of power and privilege, and a woman who would soon redefine what intelligence and dignity looked like when challenged by arrogance and prejudice. From the moment Maya stepped into the courthouse, she could feel it, that subtle, familiar chill of being out of place. The walls gleamed with polished marble, but the air reeked of entitlement. The security officer eyed her longer than necessary as he checked her ID. When she entered the courtroom, the attorney she was assisting, a young, nervous public defender, whispered, "The judge can be difficult." That was an understatement. Judge Whitmore's reputation for belittling anyone he deemed beneath him was well known, but what wasn't said aloud was that those people were almost always minorities. The hearing began as expected. The Cameroonian family, a mother and her teenage son, sat anxiously beside Maya. English wasn't their strength, and they relied entirely on her translations. As the attorney presented their case, a landlord dispute involving unfair eviction, Whitmore interrupted frequently, sighing, rolling his eyes, tapping his pen against his chin in performative impatience. But when Maya translated the mother's testimony in French and then clarified certain points in English, the judge raised a brow. "Ms. Jefferson, you're the interpreter?" he asked, his tone lined with condescension. "Yes, Your Honor," she replied evenly. "Interesting. You sound a little too confident for someone filling in as a translator." The courtroom chuckled lightly. Maya ignored it. Moments later, when she seamlessly switched from French to Fulani, a language the mother spoke natively, the judge squinted. "Wait," he said. "What language is that? And how many do you claim to know?" "9, Your Honor." He leaned back, smiling dismissively. 9 languages? Quite the talent, Ms. Jefferson. You must be the next United Nations Secretary General. The room laughed again. Maya didn't. From there, the tone of the hearing shifted. Whitmore began interrupting her translations, questioning their accuracy, even calling over the court's official translator to double-check her words. Every time, she was correct, and every time, he found a new reason to undermine her. By recess, Maya's calm demeanor began to crack. Memories of every classroom, every job interview, every snide remark about how well she spoke for a black woman came rushing back. But she steadied herself. This wasn't about pride. It was about justice for a family who depended on her. When the recess ended, Whitmore returned with a smirk. "Ms. Jefferson," he said, "since you're so multilingual, perhaps you could demonstrate for court. Speak a few words in these 9 languages you claim to know." The request wasn't about curiosity. It was mockery. The audience murmured. Maya froze for half a second, realizing she was being set up for humiliation. But then she nodded. Standing tall, she began. French, then Spanish, then German. Each language flowing naturally, her accent impeccable. Mandarin, Arabic, Portuguese, Swahili, Italian, until finally she spoke Fulani again. The courtroom had gone silent. You could hear the air conditioning hum. Whitmore's smirk faltered, but instead of admitting his error, he said coldly, "That's impressive recitation. But this is a courtroom, not a talent show. Let's proceed." It should have ended there, but fate wasn't done yet. Half an hour later, an international witness arrived, an older businessman from Hong Kong whose English was minimal. The court's translator wasn't fluent in Cantonese. Whitmore sighed, frustrated. And then, as if the universe itself demanded justice, Maya quietly said, "Your Honor, I can translate Cantonese." The judge hesitated. His pride wrestled with practicality. He looked at her, skeptical. "You?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said calmly. He allowed it, his tone dripping sarcasm. "Very well. Let's see if your 9 languages are of any real use." As the witness took the stand, Maya turned toward him and began to speak, softly, fluently, respectfully, in flawless Cantonese. The witness's eyes lit up instantly, relief flooding his expression. He spoke back rapidly, and Maya translated every word with precision and clarity. Within minutes, the courtroom transformed. Lawyers leaned forward, jaws tightening in disbelief. Even the stenographer paused mid-typing, glancing up to make sure she wasn't imagining it. The questioning continued. Every phrase, every nuance, perfectly bridged by Maya. The witness even smiled at one point, calling her muy no brilliant woman. By the time she finished, the room was so quiet it was almost reverent. The same people who had laughed were now watching in awe. And Judge Whitmore? His face had changed. His smirk was gone, replaced by the dull flush of embarrassment. He cleared his throat, muttered something inaudible, then looked down at his papers. But the moment wasn't over. The attorney for the defense, an older man who had also chuckled earlier, suddenly asked Maya to verify a key translation from a document written in Portuguese. Without hesitation, she read it aloud, translated it, and caught an error that changed the meaning entirely. That discovery swung the case and revealed that the opposing lawyer had deliberately mistranslated a clause to disadvantage the Cameroonian family. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. The judge froze, then quietly ordered a recess. He couldn't look at her. In the hallway afterward, news reporters who had been covering unrelated hearings began whispering about the woman who speaks 9 languages. Word spread fast. Within hours, the story was trending locally. The same judge who laughed at her would soon see his name trending beside hers, but for all the wrong reasons. By the end of that week, the ruling was clear. The Cameroonian family won their case. The mistranslation had been exposed, and justice, long overdue, had finally been delivered. But that wasn't the real victory. 2 days later, Maya received an email from a national news outlet asking for an interview. Then another and another. Her story went viral. Black woman speaks 9 languages, silences racist judge. People across the country, from teachers to immigrants, shared her story as a beacon of hope and defiance. Meanwhile, an ethics inquiry quietly began into Judge Whitmore's conduct. Though he tried to downplay it, video footage from the courtroom, showing his laughter and her poised response, spoke volumes. Within months, he retired early, citing health reasons. But everyone knew the truth. His arrogance had finally caught up with him. Maya, on the other hand, found herself at the center of something far greater. She began working with national nonprofits, helping to create language access programs for immigrant communities. She spoke at universities, telling young students of color, "Your intelligence isn't something they have to believe in for it to be real." Years later, she would say that moment in the courtroom didn't break her. It revealed her. It showed the world that silence can be the loudest weapon against prejudice, and dignity can defeat mockery more completely than anger ever could. As for the courtroom that once echoed with laughter, it became a story, one told to young interpreters, to law students, to anyone who had ever been underestimated because of the color of their skin. It became proof that truth, when spoken clearly, in any language, cannot be ignored. And Maya Jefferson? She kept learning. By her mid-30s, she spoke 12 languages. But she often said her most important fluency wasn't in words. It was in grace. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do in the face of racism is speak anyway.